Hello and welcome to the first ever campaign gameplay showcase for Stronghold Warlords. As we get closer to launch, I thought it would be a good idea to start revealing more raw gameplay, giving us time to work on other secret video content and to give you an idea for how the game will actually look and play at launch. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Warlords is the next entry in our Stronghold Castle Sim series, coming to Steam later this year. The Stronghold games are all about castle building and besieging, with the RTS combat in this title taking place in several different countries across the Asian continent, including, of course, China. Today we'll be showing you a work-in-progress build of the 4th mission from our Chinese portion of the single-player campaign, which charts the rise and rule of Qin Shi Huang. If you aren't aware of Mr. Huang, one of the most influential figures in Chinese history, be sure to check out our video on the rise of the Qin dynasty for a quick history lesson. Now before we begin, let me reiterate that this is a work-in-progress build with many graphics, sounds and of course balancing still being tweaked ahead of launch. We're currently implementing player feedback on aspects of the game, including UI, AI, and other 2-letter acronyms. So if you have any feedback, drop it in the comments below and we'll get back to you.
So yes, hello and welcome to Campaign Preview 1, the first in our series of previews for the gameplay of the single-player mode in Stronghold Warlords. Today joining me is senior coder Matt Smith, who you may recognise from last week's Stronghold Sessions interview, and of course our Warlord Q&As. How are you today, Matt?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
How does it feel to see the game running?
It's
actual gameplay.
Actual gameplay rather than sort of placing one thing down on the map, testing it, and then seeing if it works or not. Yeah, actual gameplay. It's cool.
I mean, it does look good in the trailers and it does look good in videos, but there's no substitute for just seeing the game running.
For sure.
So today's mission is a preview of the Chinese portion of our single-player campaign. You can of course see some of the warlords there. I believe we have the mouse. I think it's the tiger and the horse in this map. I know we've got 2 economic and 1 military warlord.
Yes.
Which of the 3 is your favourite, Matt? If you had to pick one.
Well, I actually quite like out of those. Quite like the mouse. Because he's cheap and cheerful. He's quite easy to take control of. He doesn't give you the most amount of stuff in the game, but it's quite, his edicts are cheap to buy. He's cheap to upgrade. He gets the job done.
Kind of an early game warlord.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that we've got that kind of variety in there. Which that's something that sort of developed over time. We have, for example, the mouse at one end of the scale, and we have the dragon at the other. He is far more prestigious, and his the costs for his various features reflect that.
They reflect that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in this one we've got 2 mice, a pig, and a tiger. So those are all kind of, I'd say the pig's kind of like early to mid game, maybe.
Yeah.
And the tiger's kind of just a solid all-around offensive military warlord, as we'll see in a second.
Yeah. There we go. Yes, 2 mice, a tiger, and a pig. Yeah, I think I'd say the tiger's a good sort of benchmark for, like you say, solid. Not one extreme or the other, but it gives you some good attack options. Which was quite it's an important thing to add to the warlord system, because we'd had similar ideas, in past games, but this is the first time you'll actually be able to get other people to do your dirty work for you, which is pretty cool, and the tiger can definitely bring it.
Yeah. Because it's all based on the estate system from previous games, right? So whereas in the past you'd have to imagine who is the lord of this particular estate, nearby, what kind of character they are. Whereas now you've kind of got this archetype that you can at least kind of imagine what the pig warlord looks like or what the tiger warlord looks like. I imagine the tiger having quite flamboyant attire.
Yeah. Yes. But I think he's probably more worried about the sword at his side than what he's wearing, I think.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
But it's a flamboyant sword for sure.
So obviously, we're going to see later in this demo that you can take over the Warlords in a variety of different ways. And while it's worth noting that the Warlord system in this campaign preview isn't the exact final version, there will be a slightly different influence system for taking over Warlords in the final game. Matt, do you want to kind of briefly talk about the influence system and how that'll differ from the kind of, the Warlord mechanics that people have seen in the gameplay videos so far?
So the big difference, certainly if anyone's played the demo, they will have seen that you can sort of demand obedience. You click the button and it's done. The influence system now, you're actually having to use your diplomacy points, which you can generate through things like embassies and diplomatic buildings. You can use those points to almost like bid on certain warlords. So, and different ones will have different sort of amounts that you have to hit to be able to sort of bring them under your heel. Again, going back to what we were saying before, the mouse requires a lot fewer than say the tiger. But the key thing is that if somebody else wants to get control of them, they can invest points as well. So you can end up in a bidding war. For one particular warlord, once
and that'll work in both single player and multiplayer, won't it?
I think we're adjusting it slightly between the two game modes. There might be a little bit of variation in there.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the way they're going to be used because you have sort of missions with a bit of narrative to them, but then you have the skirmish of the multiplayer where it's you're dropped on the map and it's every man for himself, as it were.
Yeah, of course. As in single player, our main goal is making the single player happy, whereas in multiplayer we have to make it fun and fair for everyone. So it can't be the same.
That said, though, you can still bring them under your heel by force.
Yep,
that is an option.
Which is what they're doing right now in the gameplay.
I
think my favourite tactic is if I have two warlords, like in this case, two warlords on my side of the river or whatever kind of geographical feature is separating me from the enemy. I like to take over one warlord by force and the other by diplomacy, and try and because I want it all right at the start.
Well,
I want as much as possible early on.
I like the idea of being a sort of puppet master and. Never actually, recruiting any troops myself, just being sneaky and hanging back and doing the work through others. But but one thing there was a fairly recent change that we've made is to how the sort of capturing by force works. So now, previously you'd kill the warlord. And then their estate would sort of fall to you, and they'd respawn. Now, though, we actually have them bending the knee to you, which is pretty cool.
I believe that was a community suggestion.
Yes.
Because obviously we've had 30,000 people download and play the Steam demo. And along with that, a whole slew of feedback, which has been great for us. Really, really, really good. We've never really done this kind of thing before, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it was
development.
No, it was something that that had been sort of discussed and experimented with a little bit, but we'd sort of seen pros and cons going with both methods. But then we saw, as you sort of brought to our attention, people in the community talking about this, saying this. Thought, if this is something people are after, then let's give it a go.
Yeah. I think I noticed it in the demo because the sound of the Lord dying is so loud. It's an incredibly dramatic noise, and I think it was when I was at PAX and someone was playing it, and that was the first person that I saw mentioned it. And then obviously when we did the Steam Game Festival, we had a bunch of other people sort of suggesting as well. So yeah, it's nice when that kind of thing comes up, and it kind of when you're working on a game every single day, you kind of lose sight of these things that, in the past we've gone to shows and had a few hundred people play the game, but now we've got tens of thousands of people playing it and giving us feedback. So it does kind of sort of bring up those little polish items that you can add to the game.
Yeah.
Speaking of polish, I've just noticed we're putting down a consulate at the moment. We do have some Vuzel factor, added Vuzel factor for the consulates and the temples coming.
Consulates and the temples, yes.
Yeah. I think the diplomat's in this demo.
Yeah, I think we changed his behaviour a little bit because he's sort of got his scroll and he walks around, sort of issuing edicts and telling people what's going on. And we had him sort of going up to different buildings and doing it, which kind of looked a bit odd. That you just sort of go up to a pig farm and hear ye. But yeah, so
this is improving our diplomacy.
Yeah, so now you've got one guy who moves between the buildings, between the sort of diplomatic buildings on your estate, and stands in front, makes his proclamation, and moves on. It's pretty cool. But yes, whereas the temples, each one will have their monk, and they do go about sort of issuing blessings to the people on your estate, and it's yes, Vuzel factor, as you've explained to me, is the correct term for it. But it's nice seeing people. It makes it feel like a living, breathing village or settlement,
Because we were talking about kind of like polish and all those kind of aspects of adding little extra touches to the game in the sort of the later stages of development, and sometimes that can mean entire new models of things, new animations. So it really is changing up until the very last moment, isn't it? It's amazing how it kind of comes together towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, what we're finding now at this point in development is we are still adding stuff, but the difference is we've got everything that's sort of critical or something else that depends on is in place, but we've still got all these little areas for improvement where they haven't been top priority because they haven't, not having them in hasn't prevented someone from doing some other work. So, but now we've got.
I hope no producers are watching this video. We're not adding anything. No,
no. Yeah. So it's nice to I still have these little touches in, and when we say we're always looking for places to polish and room for improvement, that's not just rhetoric. We genuinely are. It's nice to be doing those. Yeah.
I was thinking of doing a video about what all the 7 top things that we've changed in response to fan feedback, but I don't know whether that's just kind of tooting our own horn a bit too much. Maybe I'm being too British about it. There we go. There's the diplomat.
There he is.
There he is doing his thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the kind of thing where I think we did like a free build gameplay video a couple of weeks ago, and they weren't quite in there, and people were kind of, sometimes feedback's really useful, and sometimes feedback just happens to be stuff that you were already planning to do, or it might even just not have made that particular build for that particular showing.
Yeah, just having that little bit of outside perspective on it can be really handy.
So this is kind of the typical. This would be my typical strategy, and I believe yours as well. Turtling up as early on and as powerfully as possible.
Yep. I am a fan of the sort of the smaller towers, and just scattering a few there with some archers round about, rather than
unfortunately you can't do the classic Stronghold tactic of literally putting 20,000 archers into a single tower and hoping for the best. But that hopefully this will be better for gameplay and better for balance.
Yeah. See, so the nice thing you're seeing there is making use of the orders, the edicts, so you can sort of compensate for things that you're maybe lacking on your estate. Or it means you can say, okay, well, do you know what? I'm not going to worry about building up this part of my economy. I'm going to focus on something else, but I'm going to get that warlord. I'm going to let him deal with that for me.
Yeah. Or in a mission where, a certain resource is completely unavailable. That might be your only option.
Mm-hmm.
So there are lots of interesting gameplay sort of, ramifications for the warlord system.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to see what people think of the overall, because obviously in a demo, right, we can only kind of give people a limited amount of perspective on what the kind of ramifications of adding a mechanic like that are. But really looking forward to kind of releasing the core game and seeing what people think of it in single player, in free build, in multiplayer, in skirmish in particular, and kind of those kind of first few weeks of getting feedback and being able to tweak things will be quite interesting, I think.
Yeah. One thing I will say of note for those who have played the demo, there was definitely some balance changes. That was balanced for sort of a one-shot demo to show off some things. So you might find certain things work a little differently come release.
Yeah, I'll completely assume fault for that, to be honest. I was the one saying the rocket launcher needs to, just blow stuff apart.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah, and like the original demo as well was I think it was like a 15-minute timer, which is obviously, a quarter of how long you'd expect an average kind of RTS game to last, or maybe like a third or something like that. So yeah, we eventually opened it up so that the demo could be played for longer than 15 minutes, I think, for the Steam Game Fest. But yeah, still the balancing was nowhere near kind of finished. So we're finally in that stage now, which is nice. So
yeah.
And we're kind of still doing as well. Oh, I just want to just mention the X-ray for the units behind the tower. I've just seen a good opportunity to talk about it there. That's received a little bit of polish, I think, since we first showed it.
Yes, I think the first iteration of it was basically just sort of block color, and that it made it harder to pick things out in the middle of a fight or when there's a big clump. So we went from the sort of solid colors to what our producer calls the ready break effect, which.
Ready break effect.
Yes.
Nice.
So it's a bit of a only 90s kids will get this reference, but if you're familiar with British brands of porridge, that might make sense to you. But it's nice, and it does help. We've got some pretty tall buildings.
Yeah. I think it does kind of. It seems like a minor thing, but a lot of fans of the 2D games want features in the 3D games that make them feel like the 2D games. And I'm not kind of belittling that at all. People want the kind of precision of an early RTS game, and adding stuff like that means that 3D doesn't mean you lose troops, or you get attacked by troops that you can't see, or you put them in the wrong place or whatever. So it seems like a little feature, but it's something that kind of removes the frustration that I think a lot of RTS, and having played some of the remasters of other RTS games recently, it's quite clear how many frustrations there were in the RTS genre, and there still can be today. So I think it's a small but important addition. So what are we doing at the moment? We're getting the pig, I believe, to send us a bunch of resources while we turtle up.
Yeah. So it's focusing on the defenses, on the military. And getting support from those two warlords, which is if those are the guys you've got available, I think that's the right play. But yeah, the invasions coming in, the attacking armies coming in are getting a bit more substantial at this point.
It might be worth as well, because obviously we haven't really talked about the campaign stuff yet, and in this mission, the goal is very, very simple. Classic Stronghold, defeat the enemy lord. Once that happens, you win the game. I think there are sort of sub objectives in this one as well. So you have to defend against these invasions, and then you have to take over all the warlords on the map to sort of assert dominance over the region, and then you have to take out the enemy lords. But will there be any other types of objectives in the main campaign? I know there's some interesting stuff we've been looking at doing that only kind of comes out in that later stage when the designer starts coming back to the programmers and says, how about this?
Yeah. I mean, there's I won't, no spoilers, but there's at least one mission where it's not just the enemy troops that you have to worry about.
Nice.
Yeah, the terrain itself.
That's a nice little.
It's against you.
Awesome. And obviously we'll have the one thing we're working on at the moment is the event system. Which is going to feature, not in terms of objectives necessarily, although it'll probably feature more in the economic campaign, but it does kind of affect the moment-to-moment gameplay, quite heavily.
Yeah, and I think we've got quite a bit of variety in those this time around. So I think actually it's interesting. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, sort of campaign versus skirmish or multiplayer. Again, we want to make the events, we want to set them up such that you can have them at specific moments in a single player mission. But likewise, they could be things that could get suddenly dropped into a multiplayer game and spice things up a bit. So you've got to serve again those two roles.
I do think as well, like the Warlord system is going to function fairly similarly in multiplayer to that, in the sense that each map you're playing. Say there are, I don't know how many maps are going to be in the final game, but say there are 5 or 10 maps in the final game at launch. If you have Warlords, that randomizes things completely. So playing on the same map with a different set of Warlords can be a completely different experience. And then having events on top of that. So having all this sort of strategy sim gameplay means that one match can go 2 completely different directions even before you kind of get the Warlords involved. And I think the Warlords do kind of add a freshness to starting up a new map and taking things on, rather than we all had our favorite maps in classic RTS games that we would just load up, crush the enemy over the course of an hour and be like, yeah, that felt great. But there was never that kind of like you kind of knew what you were going to expect, right, in every single map.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
So we've nearly defeated all of the invasions. I think they've obviously done the smart thing here and placed a single tower really far out to take out as much stuff as possible.
And we're seeing some nice use of the automated arrow towers.
Yep.
Which they've got there on the right.
Little cheeky fire lancer up there as well.
Yeah.
Definitely best used on the walls. I tried to use Fire Lancer as part of a siege the other day, and it just went absolutely. I was doing a stream for an online event, and I thought, you know what, let's use some Fire Lancers. They can't be that bad on attacking. And I was like, no, these are definitely defensive troops. Again, I don't know whether that's a balanced thing or not, but they're much better poised on top of a wall like they were in real life.
Yeah.
So we've got some Warlord upgrading going on.
Yes, I was waiting for that. I thought that I've been neglected a little bit. Not not that I'm an expert, but yeah, which is
so
nice.
What happens when you upgrade a Warlord? Just for people who don't know what because obviously you use diplomacy points to do that.
Yeah, so once you've got control of them, as you've seen, you can ask them for shipments of stuff or send attacks. But you can also upgrade them. And what that'll do is one of a few things. It will give you the first thing is that they've got a passive perk, a perk that's always there, and certain levels may increase that. So if it's extra troop damage, the more you upgrade them, the more damage they'll do. If it's sort of helping with worker productivity, you'll get more stuff out of your own workers if you upgrade them.
So are there perks sort of generally geared towards either economy or military, depending on what their archetype is?
Yes, yeah. And it's generally they're geared towards making your stuff better. So rather than the perks just improving what the Warlord themselves does, maybe it'll shore up your defenses or bolster your defenses, but you've got to have those defenses in place to begin with. Mm-hmm. And I think that's quite an important sort of design choice that we made. Was they?
They don't suddenly give you like a crazy defense just because you own the Turtle Warlord, for instance.
All Warlords have some sort of perk like that. And those do get better as you upgrade them. The orders or edicts that you can issue to them, which in this playthrough you've seen primarily used to get more resources, they'll improve. So maybe they'll drop off more resources. They'll send more reinforcements. A whole bunch of stuff. But also, along with those, you can get, depending on the Warlord and their playstyle, the option to upgrade their castle. So potentially, you could build up your diplomacy points, take one of them over diplomatically, and then
or in the case of what's happening now, just go and attack them.
yes. But that's it. If I saw you were building up your army, I'd grab the wall and be like, quick, build up your walls, because Nick's coming. So that's another thing you'll be able to do through the upgrade. In fact, yes, you can see it there. Upgrade castle.
Yeah, now we're finally seeing a military focused warlord here.
Yes.
And because it's RQA playing, of course they have 1,000,001 diplomacy points already. So they've just basically fully upgraded the Tiger Warlord. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about kind of what the military focused ones can do, right? So we've got the Tiger, we've got the Dragon, a few others that can kind of do that kind of thing. The things they can do, right? They can attack the enemy for you, so you can launch small or large attacking siege armies. I believe they can build, a few of them can build siege camps as well.
Yeah.
In their estate. So you could use them as like a forward operations, base.
That's exactly it. Yes, you've nailed it. That's forward
I only know
base.
about that term by playing video games. Either playing video games or serving in the army is the only way you learn the term forward operations base.
Yes.
But yes, so they can do that as well. Obviously, they can upgrade their castles. So if you want to, prevent the enemy from being able to just march an army right in and take it. I like to station some troops near each warlord just to kind of give them some kind of resistance. And also, top tip, you get the whole your troops are under attack audio cue when that happens, and it pings you on the minimap. So if someone's trying to do a sneaky maneuver where they take over one of your warlords by throwing some sneaky type troops or some fast attack troops at it, you get that ping. You can move over there straight away and kind of try and do something about it.
Yeah, actually, as of sort of a fairly recent change, I don't know if I'm giving away too many secrets here, but with the sort of capture by force, actually, an opponent won't be able to take them off your hands if you have some troops stationed next to them. So you could take over a warlord and send him your own bodyguard to protect him.
Yeah.
And that actually, will make it a lot harder for them to wrestle them off you.
You could have like a kill team.
Yeah.
You could have a general maybe, and like some bannermen, and then either some Imperial warriors or guardsmen or something like that. Just a kind of a small squad of elite troops to be able to kind of hold it for you.
Yeah. So even if the warlord themselves,
it gives more purpose to all those unit abilities as well, because it means that you can use them in specific scenarios that rather than just being something that makes your overall army stronger.
There's a couple of examples of that come to mind. So we have the heavily armored troops, and that's a new way to use them as a sort of bodyguard to send them out. Or through sort of skirmishing and harassing, you can sort of whittle them down, and you might not be able to capture them, but maybe you can prevent somebody else from using them. By sending out fast, long-range units to just generally disrupt the other guy's goings-on. So it's provided quite a few new gameplay opportunities like those.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you want, right? If a game's both sort of traditional RTS and simulation, you want both of those systems to kind of interplay in a way that makes it more interesting. Otherwise, it's just two very separate gameplay loops.
Yes. One of the key things back in the sort of the early days of the project when we were designing this is we didn't want it to just be sort of a generic land grab. Whoever gets their army up, builds their army up fastest, and goes to the nearest warlords will just win. We wanted to make sure it wasn't as straightforward as that, and I think we've accomplished that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of talk about RTS and say that it's quite hard to not innovate, but to kind of mix up the core RTS gameplay. And I think that like the most successful RTSs recently they may have been super polished, but they've kind of just done the same core thing, right? So you get these situations where you either turtle or you attack very aggressively, and those are the kind of two strategies. And there's not like games that, you know, I know quite a lot of games have kind of strayed away from the grand strategy elements because they're just really hard to add. But I think that's where RTS kind of can grow a little bit, and but we're trying to do that while staying true to what a core RTS game is.
Yeah, for sure. And there's all the the classic Stronghold sim elements in the mix as well with that, which I think gives a bit of a unique wrinkle to things.
Oh yeah, definitely. With the whole sort of like population system, popularity, the ability to buy and sell resources at the market and the armory and the stockpile, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Go watch one of our other videos if you want a rundown of the kind of the core gameplay systems for Stronghold.
Yeah.
So now we're on the final objective. Our QA player has taken over all 4 warlords. He's just built a siege camp, as I was talking about earlier. And yeah, he's gonna attack with the help of some fire oxen, maybe. Yes.
Yeah.
Classic.
Historically
accurate.
We're laughing because research was done. At first glance, when you see an ox with a bunch of explosives strapped to it, it's a little bit crazy, a little bit
nutty. I think the reaction
but
mostly so far has been people going, and then they Google it and they go, oh, fair enough.
Yep.
They Google it to check, but they're not sure about it when they first see it.
And it's definitely something a bit different to the sort of usual siege warfare. But the thing I really like about the fire oxen is that you do have to handle them with care. I think, was it Aaron's he did a live stream a little while ago.
Yeah, he was doing the free build.
Yeah, that it literally blew up in his face. So, yeah.
I think I have about a 50% success ratio with fire oxen. Either they blow up halfway and set some of my troops on fire, or they hit the mark and absolutely, dominate.
Yeah.
It's one of the two.
Yeah.
So he's trying to do a sneaky flanking maneuver with this fire oxen.
Yeah.
So in terms of like map sizes, very quickly, I believe this is a medium-sized map.
I think so. Yes. Looking at the mini map in the corner.
Because it's just worth saying that obviously there'll be small, medium, large, and extra large maps in the game, and we are going to show more of those as we go through. Because you kind of, what I like about this map is that you've got the kind of like sort of geographical features, but you've got a nice open field as well, so you can kind of see the formations at play there. I can imagine multiplayer this being quite good for just having some big conflicts out on that open field.
Yes.
And kind of taking advantage of the formations, the ability to have your archers at the back and protect those with heavily armored troops and all that kind of stuff. Because formations are something that we've never really done in this way in a Stronghold game before.
No, and it does certainly make for quite an impressive sight when you sort of build up the force and they're all marching in lockstep.
Especially being able to control each unit individually, like as a sort of old school. I was going to say proper RTS, but what I mean is like an old school sort of classic style RTS.
Yeah.
Rather than squads.
Yes. You've got your micro and your macro and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that warlord has built a siege camp there, and you can basically use that as if that was your estate, right?
Yeah.
You can build stuff from it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And a savvy opponent may go after it and take it down, but you do have the potential to build another one. You can see there in the menu, it's actually disabled because you can only have one at a time.
Right.
I think otherwise things might get a little crazy.
Yeah. Where did those 400 catapults come from?
Yes.
Yes.
It does throw up the question though, is there such a thing as too many fire oxen? I don't know if I have the answer to that, but
now I think I've used the term Pincer Attack about 50,000 times since we announced Warlords, but what we are going to see now is a bit of a Pincer Attack. But the nice thing about it is, like, because you've got this forward operations base, you can just build the army out there. You don't have to do this thing where, in loads of RTS games where you build up this massive base and you produce an army and then you have to get that army across the entire map to get anywhere near the enemy. You can just build them straight from there, which is cool.
Yeah, and one of the another sort of military ability we didn't touch on before is sort of relief forces, reinforcements. So you can actually get them to effectively recruit troops for you, which will then sort of spawn there. So again, it gets... See, here's a term, force projection, I believe it's called.
Right.
Yeah.
And those relief forces, they're not under your direct control, are they? You can tell them to attack a specific enemy.
There are different forms.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So some might attack sort of autonomously for you, but others you then might be able to take control of them to add them to your own forces.
Ah, cool.
Yeah,
because I don't think we've featured that in any demo so far. I think all we've had so far is just, and of course it's super useful being able to send a force to attack an enemy, but having them just bolster your forces, and that's something that people were kind of asking about that was already in the plans, but just not entirely ready to show yet.
Yeah, I hope I haven't deprived you of a reveal there, Nick.
No, that's good. That's good. I think we're getting towards sort of a nice stage in the marketing cycle where we've kind of revealed like a lot of our sort of major items, so now we can just kind of relax. The game's ready to show, so we can kind of just talk about it. It's quite a nice kind of stage to be at. Really, it's all just about finishing up all those loose ends and then polishing the hell out of it.
Yeah.
So as we can see now, we've kind of got balance that's probably a bit more representative of what the final game's going to be like.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure in the demo, one rocket launcher would have taken out that tower.
Yes, that's why I was having a chuckle. I was thinking back to previous balance passes. Which was a hell of a lot of fun, but probably didn't lend itself to longevity. Gameplay wise.
So I guess just because we're kind of getting towards the end of the demo now, it's probably just worth mentioning a few things people can expect to change between now and launch. So obviously we've got the influence system, which will show off when it's ready, when we've had an art pass on that and it's ready to show. The UI is going to obviously get finished at some point, because this is kind of just demo UI that we put together functionally. And you can see a few updates to it, like you've got the little icons next to each building type, so you can see what they produce. So that's just much easier. But all that kind of black space is going to be filled out, and you'll see a few sort of minor changes and additions to the UI based on a lot of feedback we got from the Discord community in particular. We solicited feedback for that directly, so that will be changed. I can't really think of anything else. Obviously, more visual factor, more sort of graphical polish. There are some models that we haven't shown yet. Obviously, some units that we haven't revealed, siege weapons we haven't revealed, and other types of models in the game that are kind of still going to be added to it. But I don't know. Can you think of anything else to sort of point out to sort of bear in mind? Obviously, there's the occasional bit of localization tags to be added. I've noticed once or twice around here, but
yes. I'm trying to think. I know I still have a few visual improvements. On my docket. Again,
Matt just for everyone who doesn't know, Matt is the shader person at Firefly. So any graphical shaders, any nice graphical shaders that we added to the game, that's 99% sure to be Matt.
The outlines, even getting the walls to follow terrain, that's all done. Not entirely, but yes, a large part of that's done through that.
I've only learned really what graphical shaders were in the last few years. It's amazing what you can do with a shader.
I enjoy working on them, because you plug in a bunch of maths and you get something that looks nice out of it. So it's pretty fun.
And everyone goes, "What artist did this?" And you went, Not an artist, my friend.
It's all just numbers. Yes.
Yeah.
Numbers and equations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's and there's a couple more things along those lines.
Cool.
And a bit of pizzazz.
We're getting towards the end of the video now. I can see that we're about to swarm the tower. So thank you very much, Matt.
My pleasure.
We will, I'm sure, talk to you again in a future video as we go through more campaign previews.
That was your first look at some campaign gameplay for Stronghold Warlords. Matt and I hope you enjoyed this look at our current build of the game, and remember, if you have any questions or feedback, you can join the Stronghold Discord, where we both hang out during the week and talk to players. If you're looking forward to the launch of Stronghold Warlords, you can of course head on over to the Steam page and give the game a wishlist. Every wishlist is a huge help to us as developers, and it will also notify you exactly when the game comes out, with any special extras or discounts available at launch. We will of course be doing more campaign preview videos in the coming weeks and months as we build towards release on Steam later this year. So if you liked today's video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to Firefly Studios on YouTube for more Stronghold Warlords and Romans Age of Caesar goodness every month.